The 2019-2020 LA Clippers will no doubt be recognized as one of the biggest choke jobs of all time. But still, in the 2020-2021 season, they still hold a very good team. Now, the Battle of LA was always there for the season, and when the Lakers and Clippers faced in the regular season, they split it at 2 apiece, but it was always so competitive and so fun to watch. While the Lakers held up their bargain, making it to the conference finals, the Clippers went up 3-1 against the Nuggets, then choked, losing the series in 7 games. Paul George, or Pandemic P, was awful, and Kawhi Leonard also choked in Game 7, while the so-called depth of the Clippers disappeared. And although they look stacked on paper, is not basketball, and there's only 5 people on the court, and basketball is on a court, not on paper. And the Clippers organization knew that they had to make changes. They first fired their head coach, Doc Rivers, who had blown 3-1 leads in his career, and they hired Tyronn Lue. And today we're going to be looking at the expectations for the Los Angeles Clippers, the changes they have made, the changes they should do, and their floor and ceiling for the seasons, and why this is a championship or bust season. Now, before we get started, it would be greatly appreciated if you subscribe to the channel. Here on the Mix channel, we're going to be doing daily NBA videos about every NBA team and their expectations for. So if you really enjoy this series, please subscribe and also leave a like, because it only takes 1 second and it makes a really big difference. Also, comment down below your thoughts about the Clippers and what you think they should do. Now, first looking at the offseason moves they have already made, they first started off by trading youngster Landry Shamet for Luke Kennard, and this is no doubt a big upgrade. Kennard is a better shooter, averaged 16 points a game on 40% from 3 last year with the Pistons. And this is a really good pickup for only giving up Landry Shamet. They then drafted Daniel Oturu, trading in 2023 Detroit second round pick. And then they selected him at 33. I think this is actually going to be a steal, because Oturu averaged 20 points a game, 11 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks in his sophomore year in college. And that there's a very low chance that future Detroit second is going to be better than 33. And Oturu, although he is a traditional big man, picking him up at 33 can be really good, and he also shows some stretch abilities. And he can probably replace Montrezl Harrell if he develops. Then they re-signed Marcus Morris to a 4-year, $64 million deal. Now, this is definitely an overpay, who only averaged 10 points a game with the Clippers and only shot 31% from 3. But now that Morris will have a bigger role, I expect the stats to go up, but I still think this is an overpay, of course. Then they let go of Montrezl Harrell, the 6th man of the year, but he struggled in the playoffs, and signed Serge Ibaka, a good defender who can stretch the floor while also being a veteran and locker room presence. I think that Serge is a pretty good pickup because it was still on the mid-level exception. He's good friends with Kawhi Leonard, and that could increase the chemistry, and I think that's a really good pickup for the Clippers. Now, looking at some potential moves for the Los Angeles Clippers, they no doubt need a point guard who can play make and a leader. They fell into too many ISOs in the playoffs with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Rondo rejected them for Atlanta, and with Ricky Rubio most likely not being flipped again, then I'm not exactly sure who the Clippers can exactly get. I could see they maybe try to get D Rose, but they already traded their young asset in Landry Shamet while not holding on to many picks. So I think the Clippers, it's going to be tough to get that playmaking point guard. This is actually, like, now with the modern NBA, these are a lot less common than in the 1990s, 2000s, where you had people like Jason Kidd, John Stockton, Steve Nash. Now there's only people like Ricky Rubio, and they were trying apparently to get Chris Paul, but of course he went to Phoenix, so that's not a move, of course, but it's gonna be interesting. And then for that leader, it's gonna be very tough because we know that the Clippers had so many locker room presents from Kawhi Leonard, Montrezl Harrell, Patrick Beverley, a little bit of Lou Williams, and maybe even a sprinkle of JaMychal Green. You don't know. Now, I think personally that Clippers need that leader, like I said, and someone like Kyle Lowry or Chris Paul would be perfect. But since they can't get them because of the salary, they would have to trade Paul George, which I don't think they want to do. I think Serge Ibaka will help a lot, but he is not that leader. Like in the Raptors championship run with Kawhi Leonard, Kyle Lowry was the leader. Kawhi was the best player, but Kyle Lowry was the leader, and Serge is always there to reinforce Kyle Lowry's leadership. Now, let's look at some potential trades. And first, we're going to be looking, is there going to be a Paul George trade? He no doubt still has value as being an All-NBA / All-Star player. He was third in MVP last year, and although he has become pandemic P now, he still is a really good player on both sides of the ball. But he's still on the roster, but I think we should try to maybe entertain some Paul George trades. There were rumors that they were gonna like shop him a little bit for like the net for like Caris LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, but I think Paul George is gonna stay. He's gonna have to redeem himself because this is his contract year, so he's definitely gonna redeem himself. And then he's motivated by being fueled by his disappointment in the playoffs, and I think he will come back. Then there's also some Lou Williams trades. There are rumors that they are also shopping him, and it seems like it's going to be very interesting. He's a defensive liability, and losing the main pick and roll partner in Montrezl Harrell might be a big problem. If they can trade him to like the Sixers or some draft compensation, maybe like 2 first-round picks, that would be pretty interesting. But he's still a really good player. But I think that the Clippers might really want to clear house, trade Lou Williams, get rid of Montrezl Harrell, just restart and try to get that new identity with still Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And then finally, the last point I will be touching is that this year is a championship or bust season. The Clippers aren't reacting as well as I thought as a team like the Milwaukee Bucks because their 2 players, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, are free agents, so they do have a player option. But if they do bad, they're most likely to decline it. And the Bucks have been doing whatever it takes to keep Giannis Antetokounmpo. I know it isn't as severe as that, but still, Kawhi Leonard is a top 3 player. And it's going to be interesting. Now, the Bucks have got people like Jrue Holiday, Bobby Portis, DJ Augustine, Brent Forbes, while the Clippers, they haven't done much. Sure, they got Serge and Luke Kennard, but that's basically all. And I really expected more from Steve Ballmer and the Clippers organization. Now, I think they're not really trying to desperately keep their stars like Milwaukee. I think that's a problem. If Kawhi Leonard and Paul George leave, then they will be awful while not holding any of their draft picks. Like, this is very similar to the Brooklyn Nets so basically they traded Paul Pierce. They got Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, and they traded their future first-round picks unprotected, and those turned out to be Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and a lot of future studs. And I hope not that the Clippers don't really go this bad. You don't want to see any organization fall into this kind of misery, but I think that the Clippers are in a very bad spot, and unless they're able to win a championship, keep Kawhi and Paul George, get some more role players while fixing the chemistry problems, I think that the Clippers are in trouble. So yeah, that's going to be a video, and I thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below your thoughts about the Clippers, like, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.